still have folks coming in. Let's just give 1 or 2 minutes, and otherwise we'll start. Andrew, why are you taking slide control? Julian, I've passed you the slide control.
Yeah, I received it. Confirmed.
I guess we can start.
Okay. I don't have the full view on the room, but it feels that there aren't so many people.
Yeah, beverages, you know how it is.
Yeah. Okay. Hello, everyone. This is the Past Computation Element working group session at IETF 12.0. So
Hello,
let's
can you
start.
hear me?
Yeah. Hi, Chang.
Nice, thank you.
Okay, let's start by the usual not well. We are Thursday already. I'm even Friday on my side, so you should be familiar with them. So anything you say within the IETF is subject to some IPR policies. So please make sure you are aware of them. There are a couple of simple rules. Please make sure that in case you aren't familiar already, you are abiding by the rules within the IETF. Nothing new there, but important reminder. Other not well. We are a group of technical people working in standardization and providing technical specification. We are supposed to work in a respectful manner. So in case you feel you or you witness someone who may not be treated well or even harassed, there are people beyond the chairs on IDE who may help and may handle the situation. So in case you feel there are situation from in this kind, feel free to contact the ombuds team. They're there exactly for the kind of this kind of situation, and they'll be helpful to provide you any guidance in case it's needed. As usual, the meeting is using Meteco. I'm myself using it right now. The session is recorded as well, so make sure that you use turn on your mic only when requested to do it to avoid any scramble audios. When you come at the mic at the in the meeting room, also try to state your name. That will be particularly useful for Andrew, who's taking care of the meeting notes and minutes. So if you want to give a hand to Andrew, here's the link, usual typical one based on ETFR like. And as a reminder on the queue management, there's an app you're supposed to click on, either the light one on your mobile phone or the full one on your laptop. Whether you want to join the queue from the room or from Mythical, please make sure you are using the raise your hand button to make sure you are properly entering the queue, and Draven I will give the floor to people on a step-by-step basis. There's a chat also on Zulip, which is tunneled on Meteco, so feel free to use it during the session if you feel like it. Beyond the meeting today, there are usual reminder. Please try to make sure you discuss the technical document and especially the working document using the mailing list. We regularly see people discussing technical topics in interesting thread, but not copying the PCA list at each thread. So try to tunnel on include the PC mailing list on your technical discussion. That's the way the chair will use to gauge the consensus and the traction on given work. So this is very useful, and we are an open community, so everyone in the working group should be able to follow and catch up with the technical discussion on any worker group item. We have a couple of tools online, including the PCE wiki on the PCE GitHub. So if you want to follow up on some of the progress beyond the or between the working group status during the meeting, you have everything in the wiki and the GitHub also for document edition. If you feel like it, we have a PC working group GitHub. Reminder also on the existing early code point allocation procedure. I guess that many people are already familiar with it because we have regular requests on early code point allocation. So I'm quite confident that now people are aware of this option for progressing the work and progressing implementations. So the agenda has shared as prepared and shared by a couple of weeks ago. So I hope no one intends to bash anything. I don't see anyone joining too. So let's proceed with the working group status. So the documents that are beyond the working group, we don't have any new RFC since the previous IETF meeting, but we have 3 in the RFC editor queue, so we can hope that several of them will be published as RFCs before the next IETF meeting. We have 4 with the IESG. So at different stage of reviews, they are progressing as well. So those will probably move forward in the near future. So there's let's say that from the working group perspective, we are pushing regularly our work towards the AG, which is quite good. We have many active working group items, and at least we managed to close and progress some towards the IG on a regular basis. Early code point allocation. So I was saying that it seems that the working group is aware of the process to request early code point allocation because we have a bunch of documents that have early allocated code points, and we even have 2 of them that have 2 batches of code points. One that a set that was allocated quite early in the process, and another secondary set that was requested later in the life of the work item. So at least 2 of them are in this situation. So it's quite interesting to see that it's a clue that implementations are progressing and including more and more feature and requesting the associated code point for implementing all the feature. It's also a good sign on the maturity of the associated work, and we hope that those documents will be able to reach the IESG in a very near future as well. Other matters, we don't have any new errata. We have legends coming from the ITUT. One was received early this week. So Deborah has a liaison and is in charge of preparing the response. So no specific action on our side. We usually just share the progressing work in progress in the PCE working group and include them in the list of the pointing working groups to produce a collective response to the ITUT HD15 and make them aware of the work which is reaching a mature level on our side. So let's move to the detailed working group ID status. Drav will take back the floor.
Let me use this. The screen there is kind of tiny. So hi, I'll just go over quickly the status of various different documents, working group documents. If any of the authors wants to come and clarify, please come. If as a participant you have any concerns with any of these documents, let's use this time to have a discussion. So let me go over quickly. We'll start with documents that are past working group last call. We had the PCEP color document uh, that we did working last call. There were a bunch of comments that were received. These are currently not handled. I had a conversation with the authors. The authors have promised that they would be coming up with an update very soon. So thanks. Request everyone to let's progress these working group last comments timely. And thanks Andrew for shepherding this document. The next one is stateful PCE vendor. We recently closed the working group last call. Thanks authors to actually updating the document and handling all the comments that we have received in the working group last call. I would be shepherding this document and I will start my shepherd review and other handling very, very soon on this. Thanks. Thanks everyone who commented on this document. Documents which are nearing working group last call. We had a document on flexible grid. The authors have made an update. They did a good cleanup, added an implementation section. There is still some pending comments from past and cleanup needed. The authors have told that they are working on it. So we are looking forward for the next update. Moment that happens, I think we will be progressing this document next. Authors of SR bidirectional path have told us that this document is ready and we can progress this. There is nothing blocking this work. So if anybody has any comments or issues with this document, now is your time to address it before we reach working group last call. So authors are here. If you have any concerns, let's resolve this. The other two documents, the state sync and SEDALGO, is on the agenda, so we will discuss it then. With respect to PCCC SR, there was an update, mostly editorial. In my view, it is getting ready for working last call. If folks have concerns, now it's a good time to raise it. Now coming to rest of the working group IDs. We have a document that we discussed quite a bit in the past, which is the PC multipath document. We need to progress this technically also because we have an INA early code point allocation expiry coming in, and we want to of course we can ask the ISG to give us an extension, but let's target it. This document is important. We know there are implementations, so I request the authors to handle the comments that we have already received. They are still not handled when it was presented in the last IETF meeting in 117. So let's get with it. If there is confusion, let's use the mailing list to resolve it. And some of the comments were very fundamental, whether some of the things beyond SR policy architecture, should it be in the document or should it be handled in a separate document? Let's resolve those things pretty quickly. So that's a request to the working group authors as well as the rest of the working group to prioritize this work. We have SR path segment. This has no update, but it is still depending on some documents. I think SR MPLS path segment has made progress. There is also SR V6 path segment. So this still has dependencies. So let Spring resolve those, then we can take this document up. It's actually dependent on the PCC document as well. So we need to progress the documents before this, before we come to this one. We had an update for interdomain, so thanks authors for doing it. It's a bit substantial update. They added a new association, they added new notification between PCs. So they are handling some of the things that were raised in the last time this was presented. So request the working group to review and give feedback to Oliver and Julian, who are working on this document. We have SRP2MP policy on the agenda. There's a request from the authors to also do the early INA allocation. We will start on it soon. With respect to PCEP L2 flow spec, the document only has minor updates. It's basically also pending on IDR changes on flow spec V2. So low priority as of now. Path MTU, the good thing is that Spring has adopted the associated document, so that's pretty good. Path MTU, otherwise, our document in PCEP is pretty straightforward. It just defines a new metric type, and we have to just do this in tandem with how the Spring document is progressing. IFIT, I believe this document now is nearing working group last call. So if there is any comments, I think we can move this up. There has not been an update. The associated documents in other working groups are making progress. So if there are any thoughts on that, please let us know. With respect to SRv6 Yang, it was updated, but there is an error that you will see. The error is because of imported document from the Spring. So we have written to the Spring authors that please make an update quickly, as this is all the documents that are importing this one is currently failing. So, and it's a minor issue with respect to the code begin and code ends, and that's why the model is not being exported out, and it's causing compilation issues for everyone else. SRv6 and BRTE have no updates. In fact, BRTE has been expired. Authors try to push chairs to adopt document and call for adoption, and then once it's done, the document expired. That doesn't look good. Come, keep working on your document even after adoption. Just a reminder. So this is the only working group document that's in expired state. Please refresh it and keep progressing. We have some newer documents, which are the circuit style one and entropy label one. Again, only minor edits, but making progress. Recently, we adopted PCEP-LS document as an experimental. There were comments during adoptions which were handled, which is good. We also adopted control ID space. There were substantial comments, and I think the authors will discuss that on the agenda today. So it's good to see a lot of working group documents on the agenda, and so that we can make good progress on this during the meeting today. This is our queue. As I said, if you have new information and you want to prioritize, please reach out to chairs. The wiki is also open. Give us the reason why your documents needs to be prioritized, but we have a queue and we keep adding to it. But we are progressing, as you've seen, pushing documents out to the ADs, as well as getting more and more documents between each cycle adopted as well. But that's our queue as of now. Cheng, do you have a question?
No, I can up to you. I can go up to you. Yeah.
No, I think I have just one more slide. Go ahead,
Yeah.
finish your question.
Well, I just want to say that thank you so much for your help on a lot of drafts. Yeah, and we will have a new RFC, which is RFC 96 and 03 very soon, right? Which is about the PCP SRv6 extension, right? And I will follow up the priority of the document to handle the rest documents, at least the 4 or 5 working group documents. So it will take some time, but don't worry, I will handle it very soon. Yep. Yeah, don't worry.
Okay,
Yes,
thanks, Cheng.
thank you. Yep.
Okay, so the final side that I have is some of the discussions that we have been having on our mailing list. Some of them requires a little timely action, so I just wanted to give time to folks in the room or online if they have any thoughts that they want to share on these. The first one, which came based on the AD review of a recent document where We have some of our older registries, which are IETF review. I think around the segment routing time, we started moving towards some registries on standard action. When we move our registry to standard action, what would happen is any of our experimental documents that PCEP wants to use will not be able to use those registries, and that will force us to do uh, only documents in the standards track. And we don't want to do that. We have various documents like PCEP LS, which we recently adopted, as well as some documents which meets the correct requirement as an experimental work rather than a full standard. So to do that, this document simply goes back to the roots and makes all our PCEP registries as IETF review. There is a question that whether we should do it blanket to all or should we do selectively, and the documents gives us justification as well. There are past examples as well that how we handled the issue when we had less number of flags, how we created an extended LSP flag quickly. So we have handled those cases, and I think irrespective of whether it is standards track or ITF review, we will be able to handle it in the same way. So right now we aim for a blanket update, but if anybody has any thoughts, please reach out. Even we can talk about it right now as well. Okay, but we want to progress this quickly, and I would request Julian to see. I'm the author, so I would request Julian to consider if this document can be fast tracked to handle pretty quickly, since we would also have the document which is in the John's queue right now. It will depend upon us progressing this, so we can maybe fast track this, adopt it quickly, for instance. Yeah, Andrew.
Andrew Stone. Yeah, I think it's probably fine to just go ahead and blanket all the registries, because I took a look at them and there's not really that many that only have like a handful of bits. And then, like you mentioned, we have that process in place anyways. So if somebody does want to come in with something experimental and they're trying to steal very rare bits, well, we can kind of block it at that point and ask for a formal standard to basically get it extended. So sounds good to me.
Thanks, Andrew. Second one that we have is the document from Adrian, which says that some of our key registries like PCEP messages, PCEP objects, and PCEP TLVs. These three have set of code points allocated for experimental range. We don't do that for error types. Should we do it? It's most of our extensions when we do experiments, error types are pretty common to add. Adrian takes a conservative approach where he says that let's just do it for error types. I put a question that whether should we do it for error values as well, because that's how, if you look at how usually people come up with new errors, they try to club it into the existing error types that already exist. And it will make it easier when we move from from experimental to standards to keep it in the same error type. So that was my intention to ask that question. This didn't get that much feedback on the mailing list. So if people have thoughts, reach out to the mailing list, give us feedback, reach out to Adrian, reach out to me. And we want to see what the working group thinks about this as well. There was one more proposal from Tom during an early allocation request asking that the final value in our registry, like for instance, if it is saying 0 to 255, should we mark 255 as reserved? Right now, 255 sometimes is unassigned. I asked the INA. INA says that there is no unified best practices, though it's not wrong to reserve it. We don't it's nothing wrong, but do we want to do it only for one registry? Do we want to do it across? So we want to get more feedback on this, and maybe even this could be something that could be discussed across registries rather than just having a policy per se only for PSEP. So we have kept it open for now. More feedback here, and of course we can get some inputs from our ADs as well on whether this needs broader discussion or not. And that's it. That was the last slide. Any feedback, anything, any words? Thanks. Hi, Samuel. Let me pass
Hi
you.
all.
Let me
Hello.
pass you slide control.
Yep, I have it. Thank you. Hi all, I'm Samuel Sudel from Cisco. I'll be presenting draft about as an algorithm in PCEP on behalf of authors of this draft. So I presented it few times already, but at least to summarize what is this draft about, it has three major parts. PCEP extension for encoding of as an algorithm of SIT in yarrow subobject. So to be able to propagate it between PCEP years. Then the second part is about the as an algorithm constraint. So to be able to restrict seeds uh, used in the path computation on PC to specific algo. And the third part is about defining the behavior of the flex algo path computation on PC. So the draft is covering all these algorithms which are listed. So SPF, strict SPF, and flex algo. So drought was presented on IETF 118. Multiple drought versions were submitted since then, with mostly smaller changes done based on the comments. Thanks to all who provided it. New metric types were introduced to be able to encode the accumulated metric of paths computed based on the metric types encoded in flexible definition, and clarification was done for path minimum duly metric type, which was already defined in the previous versions of the draft. Manageability and security sections were added, mostly just inheriting rules from existing PCEP and IGPRFCs. We also added some explicit reference to IGP ANA registry for algorithm types. So we don't have PCEP specific registry for algorithm types, and we are just inheriting one from IGP. And plus some minor comments are addressed. One of new metric types which is introduced into the draft is path bandwidth metric. Just to avoid any confusion, it is not same information as already covered in the existing PC bandwidth object. Path bandwidth metric represents some of the bandwidth metrics of individual links along the path. So, for example, for flexible path computation, it must follow same rules as IGP, as already defined in IGP. So, for example, if link bandwidth metric value is not advertised, then automatic metric calculation will be done based on the attributes from the flexible definition subtheories. So, like the one two mentioned here, so the reference bandwidth and bandwidth results. For non-flexible computation, PC may have either may have local configuration, which will define something similar as already defined in FAT, or PC must follow the same procedures as for already defined metric types. So either fall back to some default value or use some hard-coded value. Uh, The last one is the user-defined metric. So basically complete range of the metric types from 128 to 255. We introduced this metric range, which is same for point to point and point to multi-point. Specifics for those metrics are not defined, so operator can use them freely. For example, completely separate metric type per flex algo. Metric type ranges in IGP and pieces are aligned to avoid any complicated mapping. So same, let's say metric type 130 is encoded as a piece of metric type 130. And as you can see, the example with metric type 130. So if we have, for example, user-defined metric 130 pieces, then it represents some of link metric, link metrics 130 advertised from IGP. So Thanks, and any comments are welcome. I have a plan to update the draft with the code points from these new meta types when the code point allocation will be completed, when the process will be completed. Rather than that, then we will receive that error. Any comments? Anything? Any questions?
Any comments from the room? Uh, Samuel, did we had a chance to discuss with the LSR authors, like getting a review from them would also be pretty good, since especially the update that we have just made on the bandwidth thing?
So I can start them out at. I don't think that any such discussion happened. At least I'm not aware. So yep, we can definitely discuss with them.
Yeah, I think it would be nice to just send a message, CC the LSR working group, and so that people are just aware that we have made this update. But thanks for working on this. I have also requested early allocation. Early review from routing directorate and OpsDR for this one. And once these things can handle, I hope we can move this document forward.
That would be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments from anybody? Or any question?
No, thanks for doing good. Thanks for keeping the working group mailing list engaged with all the updates that you're doing. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. No, thank you.
Come on.
Thank you. All right, on the point-to-multipoint policy. So I'm presenting on behalf of the co-authors and Andrew as well. He's been extremely helpful. So here's where we are standing with the point-to-multipoint policy on different working groups. One of the reasons that I put this slide together is I want to make sure that if there is any comments on the PCE side, we make these comments available ASAP rather than, even in November or the next couple of IETF. The reason for that is, as you can see, most of the draft have passed the last call and they're becoming RFC. And obviously the overlay being the PCE, or maybe I should say the underlay is the PCE. Point-to-multipoint policy doesn't have an underlay. There is no IGP, ISIS, OSPF, none of these stuff involved. So there is an overlay, which is the NGM VPN draft 6514, I believe, that figures out where the root and the leaves are. And as an underlay or overlay, whatever you want to call it, we are using PCE to program the replication segments throughout the tree. So PCE is a major component of this, and this is why we keep reminding every single IETF that please, if there are comments, bring it forward sooner than later, because again, multiple vendors are implementing the PCE, and in November or next year, it's just going to be too late to change the implementation. So with that said, when it comes to the replication segment itself, it has become an RFC in spring. So that was the model draft, and that's good to go. The next part, so the replication segment is actually the forwarding information that is downloaded on the router itself. So the next part is how do you attach a point-to-multipoint policy to a next generation MVPN service, and that's the PIM draft that we have. Obviously, you need to ping OEM this puppy end-to-end from the root to the leaves. So there is a ping draft as well, and that just passed the last call, and that's sitting in the PIM working group. The overlay, as I explained, seems to be very stable, as there are multiple implementations, multiple vendors that are implementing that, and that's in the BESS, the MVPN, EVPN draft. The PCE is this one, which I think in November, we are going to call for a last call. I think it's sitting in a good state that we can take it forward. And I just had a surprise who is going to shepherd it, a good surprise. So hopefully that's going to go forward. And then there are two other drafts that we haven't been working on them too much. One is the Yang. Some of the vendors, they can program this replication segment and the policy through CLI, like a static LSP. So the Yang comes into play. And then there is the BGP SRTE point-to-multipoint policy, another way of configuring the routers, as you guys know. Then you need to work on the northbound, so that's going to open up a can of worms. But that's the next thing that we're going to work on. So with regard to this draft, and I do apologize for the formatting here, the first thing that you got to understand is that when it comes to the capabilities, we did come up with a new optional TLV. And the reason for that is when it comes to the multicast state, you can have different OIF on different data paths. So not every single data path supports the same number of outgoing interfaces for a multicast state. So that's one of the things that we are actually signaling in this capability. And then the other thing is the number of instances, which I'll explain later on. But there is a new optional TLV for capabilities. So the next part is that, when this tree becomes disturbed, meaning that a fiber gets cut, how do we recover the tree? So there are two ways of doing it. Number one, for multicast, you do have global optimization usually on the tree. So that's one way of doing it, but there are other ways that you can optimize the tree locally between the two routers by figuring out a bypass around it. So there is local optimization. Again, read the draft. It does explain all this stuff. Another part is that obviously we are reusing most of the concept from unicast, with exception of some, which I explained. But one of the concepts that we are using is for recovery, and that uses the multipath draft, which is another good idea that, why that should be moving through the working group. But for backup, meaning that LFA or fast reroute, we do use the multipath draft to create that backup ERO. And one thing is that when it comes to multicast and ECMP, especially weighted ECMP, they don't go well hand in hand. If you start spraying multicast packets, they start arriving at the leaf at different times, and then you get pixelization. You're in the middle of your World Cup, and then you don't see the goal, and then there's going to be riots in the streets. So not a good strategy at all. So that's one TLV that we are not going to be supporting. So one of the main differences, again, I'm bringing up between the unicast and the multicast is on the unicast, you have the candidate paths. So if you want to do redundancy and resiliency, multiple LSPs, north and south, you use the candidate path with different preference to actually create that backup resiliency. As I explained on multicast, there is another concept under the candidate path for global optimization, which we call the path instance. So really the path instance is the LSP object, is the tree LSP itself from the root to the leaf, and each candidate path can have two LSP objects under it, one being your primary, and for whatever reason, if you want to optimize that primary LSP, the PCE can recalculate the tree and download the second path instance under the same candidate path to make sure that you do a make before break from your primary to the new calculated path instance, and that's how your global optimization will work in this scenario. So that's one of the main differences between the multicast and the unicast, that we introduce this path instances under the candidate path. From the CCI object point of view, again, we wanted to bring in the flex algo into the equation. So that's why we went with the CCI object that is already introduced into the PCEP extension PCE controller. And again, the main reason was for bringing the algorithms, tying a point-to-multipoint policy to a specific algorithm throughout the network. That was the main reason for that. So we've been asking, again, the draft is to a point that we have all the TLVs and everything set up there. There needs to be a cleanup. I know Drew brought that couple of times. I'm working on that. I'm trying to get my head around some of these object and stuff that you guys are using. So I'm definitely working on that. I understand the importance of that. But the TLVs are done. We are asking for INA assignment. I already mentioned with regard to the suggestions, please read the draft. Anything that you want to bring in, we are all ears. And yeah, next IETF or the one after that, we are going to ask for last call for all the authors that are on the draft. That's all I got. Any comments, questions, please?
Any questions? So you already have my comments. So we early allocation, we will start once we have an update. And even with the update, I think if the other updates are taking longer, we can just focus on cleaning up the INA part first, and then we can start the early allocation process. Uh, I was asking just before the meeting, like, assigning a shepherd early, since especially because you brought up this idea of that, like, since this is your first document in the PCE, having somebody from the PCE working group passing on that knowledge of how we do RBNFs and other things which are sort of unique to us would be useful. So I asked Andrew if Andrew would be want to be a shepherd for this document. Are there any concerns in the working group for that, for assigning Andrew as a shepherd? I see some hands going up. All good.
That was a good news, by the way. So,
Yeah. So thanks, Andrew, for supporting, and let's clean up, and then we can progress this document. Thanks.
thank you.
Cheng? Oh,
Hello, can you hear me?
yes, can hear you. Go
Yes,
ahead.
thank you. So this topic is about the controlled ID extension draft. Next, please. Okay,
Uh,
I can control it. Okay,
yes, you have the control.
yeah. So basically, I will introduce the background and what is about the draft roughly, and then we will go. We will discuss the issues received in the working group adoption call, and we do have mainly two concerns. Yeah, and then we will have some like brief discussion of this kind of issues, and let's take a look at if we can get some consensus. Yep. Yep. So this document mainly describes a mechanism for a PCC to inform the PCE that what kind of the ID range that can be used by the PCE directly, right? So the use case would be the PCC can report a range of the ID space, such as the MPRS labels space or SIV6 function ID space, something like that, to the PCE. So the PCE can allocate some ID, I mean the controlled ID, proactively to the PCC, right? So here we also list some use cases such as the binding seed allocation, the sRGB, SRLB, information reporting, something like that, and GIB, LIB information reporting, and allocation. Yep. So in the past, we used the open message to carry this kind of information from the PCC to the PCE, right? That is just quite straightforward idea. But it turns out that that may be not the best solution in the working group adoption call. So yes, so next page would be, yep, we need to have some discussion of the encoding design. So right now we are facing mainly two main issues. The first one is, where should we encode the information? Is the open message or other places? I don't know. Yep. And another one is, once we make the decision of which message can be used to carry the information, and what kind of format is the best design, right? Uh, Adrian Farrell proposed another solution, and I also proposed another solution in the draft already, so we can have some brief discussion regarding this. And in the poll that Drew raised in several weeks ago, we do receive some comments of which message or object is appropriate to carry information. Uh, you can take a look up here, right? One is open message, and then PCP errors object and notification message, and maybe we can still create a new object or new messages to achieve this, or in the end we can combine some above options into one single solution. Yeah, but yeah, we do have a online discussion, right? You can go directly to review what's going on right there, and you are welcome to note down anything you want, your comment, your solution, your preparation, something like that. Yep. And this page shows the comparison of each encoding design option. The option one is that use the open message, and it is quite easy and straightforward, but the disadvantage is that when the session when we need to update the information of the control ID, right, the range of the control ID, then we need to resend the a new open message that it will cause the session reset something like that, like that. So that is not what we want. It will also create a lot of troubles. So honestly, for me right now, I don't really think this original solution is a good choice, right? And option two is that we can reuse the mechanism in PCEP errors, right? Because such as like we can use the errors objects, just like the BGP errors, right? But I don't really think we should uh, how say rely on this extension, because I personally I think PCEP errors extension is a huge extension, so it will cost us for long term. So personally, I don't really prefer this option. And the third one is to use notification message. It is quite easy to implement, and it is quite easy to be understood, right? And but the thing is that we it's strange to use the notification to report the initial information, such as the information encoded in the open message or open object, right? So I also feel a little bit misuse of the notification. That is also the feeling of from Doof. And option four is that we can use some new PC object in PC report message. But yeah, you can see we also have some pros and cons, right? And the fifth option is we can define some new PCP message. It is quite clean, but it seems too 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 weight. Yeah, too heavy. Yeah, too heavy. So and the sixth option is that we can use the open message to report the initial setup of the control in ID, right, to the PCE. And then after that, if we have any updates, modification, deletion, something like that, we can use we can use the notification message to report the update event from the PCC to PCE. So by this way, we think the logic of using message or object can be appropriate, right? So this option is preferred by Samuel, Andrew, and me, right? So you're welcome to comment on this. Which option is better? Yep. And the next step of this draft would be, addressing the pending issues, and then seek for more reviews. Right. That's it. Thank you. So comments are welcome. Yep. Let's come back to this table.
First one in the queue is Zafar.
Yeah, Zafar. Welcome, Zafar.
Hi, this is Zafar Ali from Cisco. So it made me think that are we doing the right thing? I mean, this is something from management plane is most suitable to do it of setting up this from the management plane. It it looks to me this is feature creeping in PCEP. I know it's a working good draft, but doesn't mean that like now that we're walking and we're handling this, it is clear that it was not designed, the protocol was not designed for such things, and best is to just solve this problem through the management plane.
Okay.
Hi.
Drew, you next.
Yeah, thanks, Julian. So in the notes page, we also had a section on what are the desired properties. And I think it would be good to also talk about that a little bit. So I've just that open right now. We said that most implementation would consider this control ID space as static. So we want to know whether that's true in more cases, how flexible it is. Are people changing this too often? One of the key things we had was even if there is an addition, because there could be a an expansion, uh, your you are enhancing things, but are you going to go and change the previously allocated blocks that you have given control to PCE? Because that will be a huge change and it will have a huge impact on the existing things itself. We want to make sure that we don't, in any of these solutions, that we don't allow that. And if that's the case, you need to do a reset. And basically, session reset in that case could be okay. The third thing was, there was initially a comment about the size part as well, like whether open message, one of the concerns was that in the open message, if you have too many distributed blocks, the size of open message could be an issue. So I wanted to understand that feedback from the group as well, how real it is, what's happening. And maybe on second thoughts, actually, the sixth option can take care of it. You can put all the things that you can put in the initial open message, and even if the size concern is there, you can further handle this with the future notification message. So I think one of the concerns or cons of open message can be removed if we move to open plus notification. So I wanted to just clarify now my feedback. Tech, I can live with six meets our requirement. The preference for 2 was mainly because that seems like the right thing to do. It's a property of an LS node. If we have now a mechanism for a node to advertise its properties to a controller, this could easily be one of those properties, where each node saying that this is the set of label blocks or function IDs that they want to be controlled by PCE. Cheng said that that would tight it too much. Yes, you have to use PCEP-LS, but it doesn't mean that you have to implement the whole jebang of all LS types and all LS object. We can just do an LS report, and this
Yes.
LS report only supports notes, doesn't carry remote information, and only advertise the mandatory TLVs and this extra things. So it's possible, at least from the implementation point of view, it will not be a too much effort that you have to implement the whole PCEP-LS. The part that I'm worried about is it's going to be coupling the fate of this work with PCEP-LS. PCEP-LS is an experimental thing. Note, this is also an experimental thing. We can merge two experiments. It's not the end of the world. It's possible. So just wanted to clear that part to the people who feel that, oh, PCEP-LS might be too heavy. I feel it might not be as heavy, but it has that tight coupling. That would be my feedback. So let's move to the next in the queue and get more
Yeah,
feedback.
thank you. Thank you for your good clarification. Yep.
Samuel.
So Samuel Siders from Cisco. The one small comment. So I still prefer option number 6, but I can imagine that if, for example, some implementations does not need to basically change the advertised range in the future, or they know that the range is statically allocated, then I can imagine even, let's say, combining with some capability. So still even option one can be used for such implementation. So basically, if anybody who is implementing it knows that they will not need to change the range later, then they can stick to just implementing the open message solution and do not advertise the capability, so the notification message would not be supported in such case. So it will be sitting somewhere in the middle. For somebody who don't need to change the label and in the future, they can still omit the notification message completely. If the if there will be implementations in the future which will need to change the label range, then they can implement the notification message on top of that and avoid flapping the piece of session itself.
Thanks, Samuel.
Yep. Thank you.
Andrew?
Andrew Stone. Yeah, Samuel actually just said kind of along the same lines that I was going to say, which is the nice thing is we've got it embedded in Open. We use Open for a lot of capability and nodal specific information. So that's covered. Now, in the event that you do want to do a manipulation of that without having to force a session reset, notification can be bolted on top. And then now coming from the other side, so like Safari, you mentioned that, perhaps that this is a feature creep scope kind of problem here that we're bringing. But I do think in general, as a PCEP group, the idea of changing values that were given in the open message without forcing a session flap does have value in itself. And so I see this almost as this opportunity to say, there is a gap today in PCEP where you can't change open messages on the fly. And there are use cases where that might be needed, right? And you don't want to have the impact of flopping that session. And so I see this as saying, okay, well, let's take the concept of the open message and we're going to say generically, we want to solve updating open messages by using notification. Now, if your PCC doesn't support updating open content on the fly, well, then you just don't use it, right? And there's no difference from a PCE perspective. So thanks.
Excellent point.
Adrian Farrell. Yeah, I like the way Andrew presented that. However, let's not use this draft as a way of shoehorning that we might want to do this for other things. So my question is kind of, do we really actually, have we identified a need to update this specific piece of information on the fly? We don't have to rule it out, but if we haven't identified a need, let's start with the open and then look at Andrew's bigger problem space and suck in this as an update if needed.
Andrew, yeah, I totally agree. Like if we wanted to say that this draft is not going to solve how do you update open message, and we're going to solve that independently, and then ideally that independent solution can obviously just be used for this. I mean, yeah, that sounds good to me.
Do folks have any ideas on what other open message, anything on top of your head that you think?
I have to go look back.
MSD?
Yeah, MSD is a good example. So there's obviously chassis limitations on different hardware. So segment running MSD, person installs PCEP, they start using it, they realize that the MSD relayed in the open message is not quite what they wanted, so they need to update it. The only way to update that is to flap the PCEP session.
Yeah, that sounds like a pretty. So, Cheng, maybe option 7. No, 1. Let's call it 1. 1, and with the future way of handling this, which is like the best solution for you. You don't have to do much of an update anymore. Excellent.
Yes.
So what does the working group thinks? Is there any thoughts on this? I think we should take this, of course, to the list as well, that at least the people in the room feels that's the right approach, and we want to solve this in a generic way via notification outside of this document. And let's people who are interested start working on that document. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. I'll come up with another new revision and share to the list, and let's discuss based on that. Yep.
let me pass control for this one as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. So it's me again, right? The topic of this is about interstateful post computation element, which is PCE, communication procedures. And I have to say sorry that I forgot to update this draft after the IETF 119. So much, sorry so much. Yeah. And yes, let's come back to the document. Uh, First of all, this draft was presented in the last IETF meeting. And in this draft, we describe the need and the mechanism of synchronization between the PCEs, right? And the reason why we need to provide such kind of mechanism is in some cases we may need to provide additional resilience uh, for the system, right? And then you can see we may need to provide some solution to solve the split brand things, or provide some pri- primary and secondary PCEs for the PCC, just for load balancing, something like that. Yep. And in the drafts, we do provide some capabilities, such as the PCC can have the PCP sessions to multiple PCEs, and then between the PCE, they can build up some connections as well. And by using the connection between PCEs, they can use PC report message to synchronize the information, the states of the ARSPs, something like that. Yep. So that is the main information of the draft. And then right now we still have some open issues to be addressed. So the main issue is that currently we do not have the way on the mechanism to synchronize the information carried in the open message from one PCE to another PCE, because using the PC report message, you can only sync up the ARSP state, right? But what if we need to sync up the information carried by the PC, the open message? There's no mechanism defined it right now, so we may need to address this before moving the draft forward. Yep. So regarding this, we are proposing some, solution here. Uh, so we think uh, a possible solution would be we can use the notification message, and we can define a new notification type just for inter PCE state synchronization, and then we can create two basic value, I mean the notification values. One means adding PCC's open information, and two means adding removing PCC open information, something like that. But we can definitely add more value notification values if we need to, right? So also we can encode something more, I mean more information in the notification objects, such as the speaker entity ID TLV, right? It's quite normal, and it is straightforward. And yes, I think that is the main information. And then okay, this lists the details of the design of the whole solution by of using notification message. Yeah, you can see the value one, it's about adding the PCC information, and value two, yep. So I will not go into the details. Let's leave some minutes to for discussion. Yep. So the next step is do we have any object of this proposal, or do you have any other solutions? Welcome to propose the solution. And we do have some comments from agent to be addressed. I'm so sorry that I didn't have time to address them, but I promise that it would be addressed in a month. Yep. Several weeks after the ITF meeting. And comments from INA review, yeah, that will be addressed as well. And after addressing these existing issues, personally, I believe the draft is quite stable, and maybe we can move it to another working group. Working group. Let's go. Yep, that's it. Thank
Andrew?
you.
Yeah, Andrew Stone, this is just tying back to the previous conversation actually about the different use cases of why you might want to update or refresh an open message. At the
Yes.
time, I was also thinking about this case. Now, granted, the IDs will be different of the messages, but the pattern is essentially the same of saying, I'm going to send a notification message that contains open content. In this environment, it's just not about the PC itself, it's being relayed from the underlying PCC.
Yes.
And then in the previous presentation, it's just about a PCC itself. So I find we maintain a common pattern there. So thank you.
Yep. Thank you so much. Merci beaucoup.
Any other feedback from anyone? I think we already put this on the mailing list. People should have enough time to, I guess, read it. We discussed this today as well. So I'm feeling that we can start, we can confirm that this notification mechanism is the good way forward. And so I would suggest authors to update it in the document. Right now, it's only in the mailing list. So add this into the document, handle Adrian's comment, and let's move the document forward.
Yeah, no problem. I will do it as soon as possible.
Yeah, thank you.
No problem.
I have given you slide control.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, so this document is about PCEP extension for distribution of link state and T information for optical networks. First, I'd like to introduce the background of this document. I think we all agree that PCEP LS describes generic mechanisms by which link state and T information can be collected from packet networks and shared with a PCE with PCEP. This is achieved using a new PCEP message format. And secondly, generic link state work was adopted earlier this year. So in this document, we provide extensions to the link state for OTN networks. Here are two reasons. On the one hand, given the development of recent OTN technology, for example, fine-grained OTN, this approach is becoming more valuable. On the other hand, the desire for PCEP LS in optical networks may be stronger because BGP is not usually implemented, so we don't have an option with BGP LS. The document status, it is moved together with draft IETF PCE, PCEP LS, but not presented in recent years. So we want to restart after the adoption of draft IETF PCE, PCEP LS to cover the PCEP LS applications in OTN. Yeah, and these slides introduce the applicability cases. First, case one, there is an IGP running in the optical network as there is a need to collect LS and T resource information at a PCE from individual or specific optical nodes more frequently or rapidly than the IGP allows. So using PCE PLS, a PCE may receive full information or incremental update. Case 2, there is no IGP grounding in the optical network, and there is a need to collect LS and T resource information from the optical nodes for use by the PCE. Case 3, there is a need to share abstract optical link state and T information from child PCE to parent PCE in a hierarchical PCE system. For example, this requirement may exist between a PNC and MDSC in the existing architecture. So in this document, we it gives a PCEP extension, including node attributes. Following optical specific attributes are extended in this document. Oh, sorry. Yeah, in these slides, we present the node attributes. And in these slides, we present the link attributes. The following optical specific attributes are extended in this document. Next step, we will continue to cover all OTN technologies, including fine-grained OTN, which has specific demand on the link state mechanism, and implementations under progressing. We also call for WG adoption and a cross review by CCamp to check the technology details. That's all from my side. Any contribution and comments are welcome. Thank you.
Any comments? Have you already sent a message to CCamp working group, or is this something that you plan to do?
Oh, well, yeah, Hao Mian is on the line.
Yeah, Haiwen, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm trying to help this. Actually, G.709.20, the fine-grained OTN is the next significant topic we are going to work on for every protocol extension, including the PCP. And there is applicability check draft ongoing in the CCAM working group, and we are going to discuss them tomorrow. So that in that document, this document will be mentioned. So not a formal email on the list.
Thanks. I also wanted to confirm the encoding of all of these TLV value types. Those are already defined somewhere else, right?
Yeah, in the current version, we didn't count that new capability yet. So all the encoding on the subtier with are based on the existing RFCs.
Got it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Any other comments from anyone? Otherwise, we have our last presentation. Yes, please. It was working.
No.
Use that. Maybe sit down and do it.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
should I? Oh, I use this. So hello everyone, this is Luis from Telefonica. I will present an update of the draft called Path Computation based on precision availability metrics, and I will do on behalf of my co-authors. So a recap about the idea of the draft. The idea came because the fact that some communication services require the performance requirements being expressed in the form of service level objectives. This is the case of the IETF network slice services that are described in RFC 9543, but could be also the cases of other services like the deterministic ones and so. IPPN working group has defined and released an RFC about performance availability metrics. This is documented in RFC 9544. And the idea here was to leverage on that, on those performance availability metrics, so to do calculations and selection of the paths in such a way that we can have these paths according to SLOs and according to the behavior along the time, so compliant with those SLOs. So yeah, the draft was already presented in ITA 118 and 119, and I will present here the updates. So the changes from previous versions, we have been working on an applicability subsection, so added to describe the scenarios of interest that are basically path provisioning, path selection, and the new incorporation will be the incident management. So leverage on this as well for the incident management. We also have added an initial description of the PCEP message extensions following the routing Bacchus now form. So it's a first attempt. Not sure if it's correct at all, but well, we would like to assess with your help. And it's inspired in the RFC 8233. We added some additional comments for sure from different people showing interest on the draft, and also we added Kwan as co-author. And for sure we have updated references like the RFC for the precision availability metrics that were released during this period. Regarding the applicability and going into the detail of the different scenarios, one scenario could be the provision of paths according to the desired behavior along the time. So here the idea is to have some measurements of the path, and with that measurements to build somehow the statistical behavior of the path so that we can use it for provisioning the path and be sure that we'll be compliant with the expected behavior along the time. So not only the precise measurement of, for instance, thinking on latency as an example, so not only to be compliant with the latency at a given point on time, but being compliant with a statistical distribution of that latency along the time. So for instance, the path is 90% of the time below 10 milliseconds, 99% of the time below 8 milliseconds, and so on and so far. A second case would be the selection of a path according to the long run characteristics. So in the first case, the path is not yet established. In the second case, would be established, and then we select that according to the behavior. And the final case of applicability would be the fact of triggering corrective actions in a selected path. So maybe selecting another path or so, linked with the idea of having this anomaly detection and this network incident stuff. Regarding the structure of the PCEP message, we did our first attempt of having the PCEP messages described with a RMB form, and this is what we have writing down in the draft. But we need assessment to understand if this is correct or not, but essentially what we have added here is a new precision metric list for both the request message and the report message. So regarding the next step, as said, assess the PCEP messages are correct. We have doubts, so apologies if it's our first attempt for this. Also, we would like to collect more feedback from the PCE working group. This is why we are presented today. But also the idea would be to collect feedback from other working groups that are around these SLO-based services like TEAS and DevNet. And this will be done via email and trying to collect some feedback before next ITF. Also, we in the first versions of the draft, we were towards the option of extending the metric object. In the latest version, we have defined a new precision metric object. We received comments from Drew in the past if this could be the convenient approach or not. We don't know. We think that having a new object would be better for this purpose. But yeah, for sure, it's an open point, and that we would like to get feedback from the working group. And then also the idea would be to align these ideas of precision metrics with the metrics defining DEDNet. There is on RFC in DEDNet around these topics. So we want to have more relationship with the DEDNet staff to understand if this approach is valid. It's so, and in case the draft is progressing, the idea as well would be to change the status from informational to standard track. And our idea is, with all these new next steps, to prepare a new version for next IETF. And that's all from I say thank you. Should I try? Thank you.
Okay. So can you go back to the requirement, the very first one? Yeah, so there you mentioned about the selection of path or calculation, path calculation using these metrics. So in IGP or topology, you have transmission information and not these kind of metric information. And then even if you have, I mean, so that's one issue for that particular type of calculation. So you can do stuff like delay bound, which is already supported and all, but this is like a metric for computation at the device and something like SLA style for the policy. So I do agree with the triggering of corrective action, which is the next one, but the calculation is what I'm struggling with. And even if you have the information, the problem is that if you compute and the trigger happens, right? So you go to the next path, and then you recompute, and you may end up computing the same path. So even for triggering, there is an obstacle that we need to overcome. But for path calculation, there is even a bigger obstacle. So I think I'd like to hear your opinion on these two, and then.
Yeah, I think we were discussing online about this. Yeah, certainly for the first case, we need to figure out how this could be done. What has mathematical sense for that? So considering the sampling of the different segments and how to aggregate maybe and assume an extra value for the queuing and so on and so forth. So this is some homework that we need to do to see how feasible would be to address the first case. And as you said, for the second and the third, probably there are no much issues. So the key point here is to understand the feasibility of the first point and how it can be done, having mathematical and realistic, meaningful sense.
Yeah. And if I may, and also this having this information on a tunneling basis at the PCE, that's the only way the PCE can do the part two, the path computation using that.
In this respect, probably the information could not be necessarily being collected by the PCE. Maybe the PCE could have access to some database, external database. This is not, we are not entering in those details, but probably could be another different element, the one providing the information, the process information. So in the way that we don't overload the PCE for that.
Okay, anyway, it's good to see what are your thoughts in terms of feasibility of the path compute requirement for these metrics. And for the second one, where triggering or going to the next candidate path, there is a couple of drafts in spring that do talk about different criteria for invalidating a candidate path. So this could be a metric added among like those criteria. So that could be another, like you could take it there and then work on the feasibility of the path side of things. Yeah.
It would be great, Safari, you can send the pointers to those drafts, so it would be great to look at them.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Zafar, excellent comments. Let's take this to the list. I think this could have a longer list discussion on this.
Thank you.
And I'm next in the queue. So my comment was, I think from the last time itself, I kind of prefer, I want to understand a little bit better from you why you feel that a new object is needed when we can always define a new metric object type, and that could still have all the characteristics that you want of the precision object itself. So we have object type 1, which is looks exactly like our current metric object, but metric type 2, which is for precision.
Okay.
So without creating a new object class for called precision object, I'm not getting the benefit that you are getting from that.
Maybe what I can do, if you wish, is to send to the list pros and
Yes.
cons. Maybe do a initial analysis of from
Yeah.
our perspective, and yeah, with the conclusion that we reach,
Yes.
we can take the direction in the draft on this.
Agree. Thanks.
Thank you.
Rakesh.
Rakesh Gandhi from Cisco Systems. Just to add to what Zafar is saying, right? So for the link delay measurement, the goal is to measure the fiber length, and that remains fixed, right? So here it's about availability and how many times, how many packets violated, 20 milliseconds is 90%, and then 99% would be 25% and things like that, right? So it's more for services and things like that, like you have an availability metrics for the service, but for link is fixed. Like the distance between Vancouver to Calgary is fixed. There is no violation, there is no, so this is how the path computation works. So it's just not clear to me how all of these things fit together, PAM and PCE. Thanks.
Yep, I acknowledge the point that plays as we have commented with the first point. For the second point, I think it's clear because when the path is established, we can take the samples and somehow see this variability, taking into account as well the queuing time and so on so far. What you commented, Rakesh, is certainly true for the first point, so we need to elaborate a little bit more and finally end up it makes sense or not for the selection, for the provision of the path. So I take the action of analyzing that and maybe bring it to the list as well and see if it makes sense or not.
So for the second point, do you mean to say that once you know the segment list and you have end-to-end multi-hop measurements, you keep some kind of statistics, and then that when PCE gives you that path, you use that statistics and then say that this path has this kind of history and it's not suitable for my service.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that was our last presentation. Thank you, everyone. Bye. See you in Dublin.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. See you next time. Have a good one. Bon journey. Bonsoir.